In the year 1942, the war has engulfed Europe. The forces of Adolf Hitler, appearing invincible, have advanced throughout the continent, resulting in widespread destruction. But in the vast expanse of the Eastern Front, a clash of titans is brewing. A battle that would not only define the course of the war, but would also become synonymous with unimaginable suffering and unparalleled resilience. Hitler's ambition was absolute: to conquer the Soviet Union, seize its vast resources, and eradicate what he perceived as the Jewish Bolshevist threat. This grand strategy was codenamed Operation Barbarossa. Launched in the 22nd of June 1941, Barbarossa was the largest military invasion in history. 3 million German soldiers, supported by tanks and aircraft, surged across the Eastern Front, aiming to achieve a swift victory before the onset of winter. Initially, the Wehrmacht achieved stunning victories. Soviet forces were caught off guard, poorly equipped, and suffered catastrophic losses. But the vastness of Russia, coupled with fierce, though often disorganized resistance, began to slow the German advance. By the summer of 1942, the German offensive had stalled. Hitler, desperate for a decisive victory, shifted his focus to the south, his primary target, Stalingrad. Stalingrad was more than just a city. It was a vital industrial hub, producing tanks and other essential war materials. More importantly, it controlled access to the Volga River, a crucial artery for transporting oil from the Caucasus, resources desperately needed to fuel the German war machine. Capturing Stalingrad would not only cripple the Soviet war effort, but also serve as a major propaganda victory, demoralizing the enemy and bolstering morale at home. In August 1942, the German Sixth Army, under the command of General Friedrich Paulus, launched its assault on Stalingrad. The Luftwaffe unleashed a devastating aerial bombardment, turning the city into a sea of flames. The Axis forces were composed of 270,000 soldiers, 500 tanks, 600 aircraft, and 3,000 pieces of artillery. In contrast, the Soviets defending Stalingrad had 190,000 troops, 400 tanks, 300 aircraft, and 2,200 artillery pieces under their command. The Luftwaffe conducted numerous bombing raids throughout the city prior to the start of the main offensive. Earlier, the Luftwaffe achieved air superiority over Stalingrad, causing the Soviets to lose 201 aircraft in just 8 days. But the Soviet defenders, under the command of General Vasily Chuikov, were determined to hold the city at any cost. They adopted a strategy of close combat, fighting the Germans street by street, house by house, turning every building into a fortress. The fighting in Stalingrad was unlike anything seen before. It was a brutal, relentless urban war of attrition, fought in the ruins of a once proud city. The average life expectancy of a soldier on the front lines was measured in hours. Key locations within Stalingrad became battlegrounds of legendary ferocity. Mamayev Kurgan, a strategic high ground overlooking the city, changed hands countless times. Pavlov's house, defended by a small group of Soviet soldiers, held off the Germans for nearly 2 months. The fighting was characterized by unimaginable brutality. Snipers, machine gun nests, and booby traps were everywhere. Soldiers fought in sewers, cellars, and the ruins of bombed-out buildings. The Soviets had renowned snipers like Vasily Zaitsev, who killed over 200 enemies, and he also trained his comrades during the fight. This sniper group targeted German officers. Therefore, the deployment of snipers was crucial for both sides. By October 1942, the Axis forces had taken control of the majority of Stalingrad, with German air dominance playing a critical role in their success. During the summer, the Luftwaffe flew approximately 10,000 flights. while the Soviet Air Force flew approximately 11,000 missions over Stalingrad. The arrival of winter halted further German gains. During winter, the Germans had low motives to continue the fight. Thus Paulus sought to return to the River Don, but the command opposed it. Food and water were scarce, ammunition was in short supply. The wounded often died where they lay, unable to be evacuated. Both sides suffered horrific losses. While the Germans were focused on the bloody struggle within Stalingrad, the Soviets were secretly preparing a massive counteroffensive. Codenamed Operation Uranus, it was a daring plan to encircle and trap the German Sixth Army. On November 19, 1942, Operation Uranus was launched. Soviet forces, led by Generals Zhukov and Vasilovsky, struck from the north and south, breaking through the overstretched German and Romanian lines. The generals consecrated almost 800,000 men in the Stalingrad area in preparation for a counteroffensive. The goal of Operation Uranus was to breach the thin German lines on two flanks and then combine these forces to encircle the German troops. Within 4 days, on November 23rd, the German Sixth Army, along with elements of other Axis forces, was completely encircled inside Stalingrad. Over 250,000 soldiers were trapped, cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Hitler refused to allow Paulus to break out of the encirclement. He promised to supply the Sixth Army by air, but the Luftwaffe was unable to deliver sufficient food, ammunition, and medical supplies. Conditions inside the Stalingrad pocket were appalling. Soldiers were starving, freezing, and riddled with disease. The wounded died for lack of medical care. Morale plummeted. The Soviets tightened the noose around the pocket, relentlessly bombarding the remaining German positions. The Sixth Army was slowly being crushed. In a desperate attempt to rescue the Sixth Army, the Germans launched Operation Winterstorm, a relief effort led by Field Marshal Erich von Manstein. Manstein's forces consisted of 2 divisions, managed to advance to within 30 miles of the encirclement, but they were ultimately stopped by fierce Soviet resistance and the deteriorating weather conditions. Additionally, the Soviets targeted German Air Force bases that attempted to facilitate air shipment of supplies. With no possibility of rescue, the fate of the Sixth Army was sealed. On February 2, 1943, General Paulus surrendered the remnants of the German Sixth Army. Over 91,000 German soldiers, exhausted, starving, and frostbitten, were taken prisoner. The Battle of Stalingrad was over. The German dream of conquering the Soviet Union had been shattered. The Eastern Front had become a graveyard for the Wehrmacht. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the bloodiest battles in human history. An estimated 2 million people, soldiers and civilians, were killed, wounded, or captured. The defeat at Stalingrad marks the first major surrender of a full German army. Hitler's dreams of conquering the Soviet Union are in ruins. Over 91,000 German soldiers are taken prisoner, including high-ranking officers like Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus. For the most of captured Germans, captivity means a slow death of disease or starvation, and forced labor will claim the lives of nearly 85% of these prisoners of war. For the Nazis, the loss is catastrophic. More than 500,000 Axis soldiers have been killed, wounded, or captured in this campaign alone. Hitler is enraged. He refuses to allow any retreats in future battles, condemning even more German soldiers to death in the brutal Eastern Front. But the Soviet victory comes at a terrible cost. Over 1 million Soviet soldiers and civilians have perished. Stalingrad, once a thriving industrial city, has been reduced to a skeleton of rubble and ashes. The Red Army is victorious, but the scars of war will never fade for those who survived. Politically, Stalingrad changes everything. The Soviets have proven that they can not only resist the Nazi war machine, but destroy it. Stalin's confidence grows, and the Soviet Union tightens its grip on the Eastern Front. Meanwhile, in Berlin, the German people begin to question Hitler's leadership for the first time. In the West, Stalingrad convinces the Allies that victory is possible. Just months later, they plan the invasion of Italy and intensify preparations for D-Day. The Battle of Stalingrad was more than just a military victory. It was a turning point in history. It marked the beginning of Nazi Germany's downfall and reshaped the world forever. Its impact can still be felt today.